Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and I don't like to give myself easy tasks, so let's blind taste orange wines. We all know the drill. White wines are typically made from light-skinned grapes that are pressed, and their skins are typically removed before the alcoholic fermentation starts. However, this practice is actually relatively recent, because historically white wine was made similarly as red wine with a contact of skins and oftentimes stems and seeds during the fermentation process. This technique results in a unique wine style that we nowadays call orange wine. Currently, it is believed that Georgia is the homeland of wine and naturally homeland of orange wine as well. Only there it is referred as amber wine, and to call it that, it must be made in contact with the grape skins and done so in their traditional clay pots called kvevri. Therefore, in respect to Georgian wine heritage, I will repeat what I said in my orange wine video. All amber wines are orange wines, but not all orange wines are amber wines. Amber wine is also their most popular wine style for gatherings and celebrations in the evenings. This is going to be very challenging blind tasting because of two reasons. First, this winemaking technique can take over some of the more traditional aroma flavors and structural elements of the grape, making it harder to identify. Second, I don't have that much experience with orange wines in general. Therefore, I don't necessarily know how tannins show in Riesling or Garganega wines as opposed to red wine tastings. And one more note, since orange wines tend to have rather expressive tannin structure, some even at the same level with red wines, I will taste these wines at room temperature. And I recommend that you do the same, especially with the better examples, because lower temperature can make tannins appear harsher and more aggressive on the palate. Here I have gathered some of the best orange wines in my opinion from highly regarded producers. One of them is from the homeland itself, Georgia, and the rest are from other countries. So let's see how they stand up next to each other. These wines were poured by my cameraman, so I don't know which one is which. So wine number one. It is a bit cloudy on appearance, and I kind of guess that all the wines more or less will be, because orange wine style naturally goes with natural or low intervention wine often. And I do believe that I know quite well the origin of this wine before I have even smelled it or tasted it, because it is, as you see, reddish. And there is one grape in this flight that actually has not white or green skins, but pinkish, and that is Pinot Gris. So yeah, this color gives away the origin or grape immediately. But let's taste it and smell it. It actually smells of fresh strawberries, raspberries. It's funny because if I wouldn't see the color in the real blind tasting, it would be interesting, because I would probably from the smell think it is a red wine. It's almost like fresh crushed strawberries, like, you know, when you pick them up from the forest or garden and you just crush them, and it's just so expressive on the nose that way. Wow, this wine has that tannic grip as well that you would often find in some light-bodied red wines. It is very playful though. Like on the palate, it also shows some of the floral characteristics, not necessarily perceived on the nose. So overall, good concentration on the palate. And I mentioned the grape, and I said it is Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio. And in this case, we have one example of Pinot Grigio, and that comes from Friuli. So I will pinpoint this wine in Friuli, Italy. So let's move to wine number two. Completely different nose. It shows ripe peaches, apricots, but it also shows some smoky characteristic like smokiness, toast, which gives a hint that it could be aged both in clay pots as well as oak. And after a while, it kind of gives you these honeyed notes, like, I don't know, honeyed fruits, beautiful, or honeyed chamomile tea. I like it. Quince, caramelized or honeyed quince. beautifully structured wine, I would say. It does have elevated acidity, which is well integrated within the wine. This wine also shows fuller body. If I would have to guess right away, because of that fuller body and actually rounder tannin structure, which tells me, and this will be interesting, which tells me that this wine has been aged on its skins for quite a long time. It seems strange, I know, but tannins tend to polymerize and create these longer chains. Therefore, with time, they actually seem softer on the palate. I would say that this is Georgian wine. Ricacitelli, Georgian amber wine, aged in Kvevri. Let's move to wine number 3. I know this nose right away. This is very typical Riesling. Well, I do hope it's Riesling, but like nothing, no other grape smells like that. It smells like preserved lemons and lemon peel or caramelized lemon peel. White florals. Absolutely amazing nose. And that's also Riesling's acidity. Can you see? I cannot keep swallowing the saliva back because acidity does that. Like your palate wants to normalize the pH level that just happened. That's definitely Riesling, and we picked a Riesling from Wachau, Austria, so I would put that wine in Wachau. It's very floral, white blossom. I want to taste it again because I was so taken off by the acidity. I want to feel the structure, the tannin structure of this wine. It does show that phenolic grip, but Riesling is one grape that I never associate with any type of phenolic, but I do like the wine. So let's move to wine number 4, which if the first 3 wines are what they are, I know what it is. And I actually quite know the nose because I work with this winery. It offers a bit more tropical fruits, dried fruits rather than the second wine. This is like dried mango, dried pineapple, of course peaches and apricots are there as well. And this wine actually seems to have the most intense tannin structure, the most drying palate of all the 4 wines, but it is quite balanced. It is beautifully integrated as you would expect in a very good, high quality red wines. So this is it, and let's reveal the wines. And to help reveal the wines, we have in the studio my trustworthy doggo, Obi-Wan. So, wine number 1. I said that wine number 1 was coming from Friuli, Italy, and there are several iconic producers, and this one I think is one of them. I like the aroma that was so crushed red fruit berries, amazing, and I would rate that wine 8.7. 8.7. Oh, it is Radicon 2019 vintage Pinot Grigio. As I said, I mean, that was probably the easiest wine because we all know that Pinot Grigio is pinkish grape. That of course translates especially well in the glass when you have wine that has been made in the contact with the skins. So yes, I guess it was actually quite easy. Wine number 2. I did like this wine, but I do think it has some oak in it as well. I mean, it could have some Kvevri, but it also has some oak in it. And I mean, this one had very beautifully managed tannins. Yeah, it brought me to Georgia. I would score this wine 9 points. Ooh, it is indeed Georgia Dakishvili family selection. I actually have met, it has been my pleasure to meet the producer Gogi. He is an amazing person. The knowledge that he has, the charisma that he presents, you just simply want to be around him. Amazing person, and he is apparently consulting many high-quality winemakers and wineries in Georgia. Yes, and this is his wine. Great wine. Ricacitelli, one of the very old and actually ancient grape varieties, not only in Georgia but in wine world in general. So let's reveal wine number 3. I would be confused if it wasn't Riesling because it had such a distinct aroma, and I loved the aroma. I love Riesling. Riesling is one of my favorite grape varieties. It was a bit unusual for me to taste Riesling with this kind of tannin structure or phenolic grip, so I was maybe slightly confused by it, but anyway, it was a great wine and I would rate it 8.5 points. It is Riesling. and it comes from very, very dear producer to me, which is Domaine Bachau, definitely offering great price-quality ratio. Now I am alone, and let's reveal the last wine. Wine number 4. I would never guess grape varieties here if I wouldn't know the wine. And it comes from Sicily. And it is indeed Sicily CORAVIN orange wine. They actually make their wine very similarly in the way they do it in Georgia. They have these clay pots installed in the ground the way as it is done in Georgia. So it's kind of an inspiration and ode to Georgian wines. I guess I forgot to rate the last wine. I would have given it 8.8 points. Yes. 8.8 points. It might actually seem that it was easier for me to blind taste these wines, but it's not necessarily so, because when you know where they're from, when you know the grape variety, it makes it quite easy. But when you are tasting these wines blind in isolation, it could not be that successful. I'm extremely happy to see that traditional Georgian wines stand proudly next to such classical wine origins as Italy. And if you like blind tastings and Italian wines, you might like this video.